In the wild frontier, truth and lies wear the same dust. A man's worth isn't measured by the color of his skin, but by the courage in his heart when justice calls. The dusty trail to Redwood Springs stretched endlessly under the Colorado sun. Jack Thornton adjusted his worn hat and spurred his horse forward, the leather saddlebags heavy with federal documents hidden beneath prospectors' tools. The town emerged from the heat haze like a mirage. Weathered buildings, a church spire, and the distant sound of hammers on anvils. He'd been sent by Washington to investigate the gold wagon attacks, but here he was, just another fortune seeker. The badge stayed hidden in his boot. Sheriff Tom Mackenzie stood on the boardwalk, watching the stranger ride in. His weathered face showed years of frontier justice, gray mustache twitching with suspicion. "Another gold hunter," he muttered to Deputy Collins. "Mark my words, those Cheyenne raids will send him packing within a week." The stranger dismounted outside the Silver Dollar Saloon, movements deliberate and calm. Mackenzie noticed the way the man's eyes swept the street, not like a prospector, but like someone reading danger in every shadow. The Silver Dollar's batwing doors swung open as Jack entered, spurs jingling on worn floorboards. Rose O'Connor looked up from polishing glasses, her emerald eyes meeting his with recognition that lasted only a heartbeat. "Welcome to Redwood Springs," she said, Irish accent soft but guarded. "Rooms $2 a night, meals extra." Jack nodded, studying her face. The auburn hair, the way she held her shoulders. It was her, though years had changed them both. "Much obliged, ma'am," he replied carefully. Rose showed Jack to his room upstairs, her hand trembling slightly as she turned the key. "You remind me of someone," she whispered when they were alone. Jack set down his saddlebags, studying her face in the lamplight. "New York's a long way from here, Rose." Her breath caught. "Jack? Jack Thornton?" He nodded slowly. "I thought you were dead. They said, what I do for a living makes people think that sometimes." She stepped closer, then stopped. "Why are you here?" "Same reason you are, I reckon. Running from something." Chief Black Hawk sat beside the dying embers of the council fire, his weathered face etched with worry. The Cheyenne camp had known peace for 3 seasons, yet now his people were blamed for attacks they never committed. "Father," said Gray Arrow, approaching with silent steps. "Another of our hunting parties found white man's tracks near the creek, but no white men." The chief nodded grimly. "Someone wears our footprints like a mask, my son. The spirits are troubled by this deception." Elizabeth Harrison rode her mare through the meadow, auburn hair flowing in the mountain breeze. At Eaglestone Falls, Gray Arrow waited in the shadows of the pines, his heart racing as she dismounted. "You shouldn't have come," he said softly, stepping into the sunlight. "My father grows suspicious." Elizabeth touched his hand gently. "I don't care what anyone thinks. What we feel isn't wrong." Gray Arrow's dark eyes reflected pain. "My people are called murderers. Your people prepare for war. How can love survive such hatred?" Pastor Ezekiel Black watched from the church window as Elizabeth rode past, his pale eyes following her every movement. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across his gaunt face as he planned. "She's meeting that savage again," he muttered, adjusting his black collar. The girl's inheritance would fund his true work, the weapons trade that had made him rich. But first, he needed to eliminate the Indian threat permanently. His hand moved to the drawer where maps of Cheyenne territory lay hidden beneath scripture. In the Silver Dollar, Jack nursed his whiskey while listening to the townsfolk's fears. "Them Cheyenne are getting bolder," said a rancher. "Found 3 of my cattle with arrows in 'em." Jack's trained eye caught inconsistencies in their stories. Arrows that flew too straight, attacks too perfectly timed. Rose approached with the bottle. "You're thinking awful hard for a prospector," she whispered. "Maybe because I'm not just digging for gold," he replied quietly. "Some treasures are more dangerous than others." Jack Thornton studied the attack patterns from his hotel room, maps spread across the wooden table. The timing was too precise, the targets too specific. Someone with inside knowledge orchestrated these raids. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Rose entered quietly, closing the door behind her. "The townsfolk are planning a vigilante raid on the Cheyenne camp," she whispered urgently. "Sheriff Mackenzie can't stop them." Jack looked up, seeing fear in her emerald eyes. And you're warning me because? Because I know you're not what you claim to be, Jack Thornton. You never were just a simple man. Under the silver moonlight at Eaglestone Falls, Gray Arrow waited for Elizabeth, his heart heavy with foreboding. The waterfall's mist caught starlight like scattered diamonds as she appeared through the pines. My father's hired extra hands, she said breathlessly. He speaks of war against your people. Gray Arrow took her hands in his, feeling their trembling. Then we must speak now, before it's too late. I love you, Elizabeth Harrison, but love cannot stop bullets or hatred. She pressed close to him. Then we'll find another way. Love has to be stronger than fear. Pastor Ezekiel Black emerged from the shadows behind the church, having overheard the young couple's conversation. His thin lips curved into a cold smile as he watched them part ways. Perfect, he murmured, adjusting his black coat. The girl's defiance would only make his plan more convincing. He'd already planted evidence in the Cheyenne camp, a bloodied dress fragment, a silver locket. When the massacre occurred, he'd be the grieving pastor who tried to save her. And Elizabeth's considerable inheritance would fund his expanding operations across 3 territories. In the Silver Dollar's back room, Jack confronted Rose about her past. You didn't just run from New York, he said quietly. You ran from Scar McGilligan and his weapons smuggling ring. Rose's face went pale. How did you? Because I've been tracking that network for 2 years. The question is, are you still part of it? She turned away, hands shaking. I tried to expose them. McGilligan discovered my betrayal and put a price on my head. I thought the frontier would be far enough. Jack stepped closer. It never is. But maybe together we can finish what you started. The Harrison Ranch lay peaceful under the evening sky when masked riders thundered from the canyon, their faces painted in war colors, feathers dancing in their hair. But Gray Arrow, approaching for his secret meeting with Elizabeth, recognized the deception immediately. These were white men in Cheyenne disguise. Elizabeth! He shouted, spurring his horse forward as gunfire erupted. Ranch hands scattered like startled cattle. Through the smoke and chaos, he saw her father fall, blood spreading across his shirt. The riders seized Elizabeth, her screams echoing across the valley as they disappeared into the growing darkness. Sheriff Mackenzie arrived at the ranch to find Gray Arrow kneeling beside the dying Harrison. You, the rancher gasped, blood frothing his lips. You did this, savage. Gray Arrow pressed his hands to the wound, desperate to stop the bleeding. No, I came to warn you. But Mackenzie's rifle was already trained on him. Step away, boy. The lawman's voice was cold steel. Tom Harrison was a good man. You'll hang for this. Gray Arrow's eyes blazed with anguish. They wore our paint, but their hearts were white with evil. Elizabeth. They took Elizabeth. The jail cell's iron bars felt like a cage built for a wild animal. Gray Arrow paced the small space, his mind racing with images of Elizabeth in danger while he rotted behind bars. You're wasting time, he shouted at Mackenzie. Every moment you keep me here, she suffers. The sheriff sat at his desk, cleaning his rifle methodically. Save your breath, boy. Judge will be here next week for the hanging. Outside, Gray Arrow could hear the townspeople gathering, their voices rising in anger. Why wait for a judge? Someone yelled. String him up now. The mob's fury grew like a wildfire. Chief Blackhawk received word of his son's arrest as storm clouds gathered over the mountains. His weathered hands trembled with rage as he called his warriors to council. They have taken Gray Arrow for crimes he did not commit, he announced, his voice carrying across the camp. The white man's justice is a lie painted red with our blood. War paint appeared on stern faces as braves reached for their weapons. We ride at dawn, declared Running Bear the war chief. No more will we be blamed for ghosts. Blackhawk nodded grimly. Then let them see what Cheyenne vengeance truly looks like. Jack Thornton examined the evidence by candlelight in his hotel room. War paint samples, boot prints, and a torn piece of cloth that didn't match Cheyenne fabric. The pattern was clear to his trained eye. It's him, he muttered, studying Pastor Black's movements on his hand-drawn map. Rose entered quietly, her face pale with fear. The pastor was asking questions about you tonight. Too many questions. Jack looked up grimly. He's been using the church as a front for weapons smuggling. Those fake raids were meant to start a war. Dead Indians can't testify against him. Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains like distant war drums. In the abandoned mine shaft high in the mountains, Elizabeth struggled against her bonds as Pastor Black approached with false sympathy. "My dear child," he said softly, his pale eyes gleaming in the lamplight. "Such a tragic loss. Your father, killed by those savage Cheyenne." Elizabeth's eyes flashed with defiance. "You're lying. Gray Arrow would never hurt anyone." The pastor's smile turned cold. "Gray Arrow will hang for murder. And you, my dear, will become my wife to heal this community's wounds." His skeletal fingers traced the air near her face. "Your inheritance will fund God's work across the frontier." Old Wise Crow moved through the shadows of the jailhouse like a ghost from another time. His weathered hands worked silently on the lock while Gray Arrow waited, muscles tense as a coiled spring. "Your father sends word," the elder whispered. "War comes with the dawn." The lock clicked open. "I cannot run while Elizabeth suffers," Gray Arrow protested. "Then we find her first," Wise Crow replied, pressing a knife into his hand. "The old mines, where white men once sought gold, now they hide their shame." Gray Arrow's eyes blazed with renewed hope. "The Eaglestone path leads there through the high country." Rose O'Connor searched through the pastor's study while he conducted evening services, her heart pounding with each creak of the floorboards. Hidden beneath false scripture, she found maps marking weapon caches, correspondence with criminal networks, and most damning, a detailed plan for Elizabeth's forced marriage. "Looking for something?" Pastor Black's voice cut through the darkness like a blade. Rose spun around, finding him silhouetted in the doorway. "I know what you are," she said, backing toward the window. "And I know what you were in New York," he replied, advancing slowly. "Scar McGilligan sends his regards. The neutral ground by the river had witnessed countless treaties and broken promises." Jack Thornton waited in the morning mist, his federal badge now visible on his vest. Chief Black Hawk approached with measured steps, war paint streaking his weathered face. "You speak for the White Father in Washington?" the chief asked, his voice carrying generations of betrayal. "I speak for justice," Jack replied, spreading the evidence on a fallen log. "Your son is innocent. These documents prove Pastor Black orchestrated every attack." Black Hawk studied the papers, his dark eyes narrowing. "Why should I trust another white man's words?" "Because," Jack continued, "my woman died trying to expose this same network in New York. Rose O'Connor risked everything to gather this evidence." He showed photographs of the fake war paint, the planted weapons. "Your people are being used as scapegoats for a criminal conspiracy that reaches from here to Washington." Chief Black Hawk's expression slowly changed from suspicion to grim understanding. "The spirits whispered of great deception. You would fight beside us?" Jack nodded. "To save an innocent girl and stop a war that would destroy us all." The chief extended his hand. "Then we are no longer enemies, Jack Thornton." Gray Arrow emerged from the pine shadows like a hunting wolf, his escape from jail already legend among his people. "Father," he said, kneeling before Black Hawk, "I know where they hold Elizabeth." The young warrior's eyes burned with desperate love. "The old copper mines in Dead Valley. Wise Crow showed me the hidden paths." Jack studied the terrain, his military training calculating distances and angles. "It's a natural fortress. They'll see us coming from miles away." Gray Arrow smiled grimly. "Not if we use the underground tunnels. The mountain has many secrets white men never learned." In the Silver Dollar, Rose O'Connor prepared for what might be her final confrontation. She loaded her derringer with practiced hands, memories of New York flooding back. "I should have killed you years ago, Scar," she whispered to the empty room. Through the window, she could see Pastor Black's men gathering, rough faces she recognized from wanted posters. Among them, the scarred visage of McGilligan himself, her former partner turned enemy. "This ends tonight," she vowed, checking the small blade concealed in her boot. "Elizabeth Harrison won't suffer for my past mistakes." Dawn broke over Dead Valley like a blood-red promise as the unlikely alliance took their positions. Jack Thornton led the federal agents down the main canyon, while Chief Black Hawk's warriors moved through the high ridges like mountain spirits. The bandits' camp sprawled around the mine entrance, smoke rising from their cook fires in lazy spirals. "Remember," Jack whispered into his speaking horn, "we need Pastor Black alive to testify." Gray Arrow crouched beside him, bow strung and ready. "And Elizabeth unharmed," he added fiercely. The first shot rang out like thunder, echoing off canyon walls as the battle for justice began. Pastor Black heard the gunfire from his makeshift chapel in the mine's depths and smiled coldly. "Let them come," he told his remaining men. "The girl dies with us if they breach the entrance." Elizabeth struggled against her bonds, her wedding dress torn and dirty from days of captivity. "You're insane," she gasped. "Gray Arrow will find me." The pastor's laugh was like breaking glass. "Your savage lover will find only your corpse, my dear. I've planted enough dynamite to bring down half the mountain." His skeletal finger traced the detonator wire. "If I cannot have your inheritance, no one can." The tunnel system proved treacherous as Gray Arrow led Jack through passages carved by long-dead miners. Water dripped from overhead timbers, and the air grew thick with dust and danger. "This way," Gray Arrow whispered, his keen senses navigating the darkness. Behind them, explosions rocked the main entrance as Blackhawk's warriors pressed their attack. Suddenly, Scar McGilligan stepped from the shadows, his weapon gleaming. "Well, well," he sneered. "The federal dog and his pet savage." Jack's hand moved to his rifle. "McGilligan, I wondered when you'd show yourself." The scarred man's laugh echoed off stone walls. "Time to finish old business." In the Silver Dollar's main room, Rose O'Connor faced her past as McGilligan's men surrounded her. Bottles shattered and chairs overturned as gunfire erupted. "You always were too clever for your own good, Rose," called a familiar voice. Through the smoke stepped McGilligan himself, his scarred face twisted with old hatred. "You cost me everything in New York." Rose's derringer was steady in her hand. "You cost yourself everything with your greed." They circled each other like predators, years of betrayal and violence hanging between them. "This dance has been a long time coming," she said quietly. "Let's finish it." The mine shaft trembled as Pastor Black's finger hovered over the detonator. "If I cannot have salvation, then let there be damnation," he screamed, his sanity finally snapping. Gray Arrow burst through the tunnel entrance just as the first explosion rocked the chamber. Stone and timber rained down as he dove toward Elizabeth, cutting her bonds with desperate speed. "Gray Arrow!" she cried, throwing her arms around him as another blast shook the mountain. A massive beam crashed down, pinning his leg beneath its weight. Blood seeped through his buckskin leggings. "Leave me," he gasped. "Save yourself." Elizabeth's eyes blazed with fierce determination. Never. In the Silver Dollar, Rose and McGilligan's deadly dance reached its climax. Furniture exploded around them as they exchanged shots, moving with the practiced grace of professional killers. "You broke my heart in New York," McGilligan snarled, reloading behind the overturned bar. "Now I'll break everything else." Rose's laugh was bitter as winter wind. "My heart was already broken by better men than you." Her derringer spoke twice, and McGilligan staggered, crimson spreading across his vest. But his dying shot found its mark. Rose felt the bullet's fire in her chest, her strength ebbing like sand through fingers. "Jack," she whispered, falling to her knees. Jack Thornton pursued Pastor Black through the collapsing mine tunnels, federal badge gleaming in the lamplight. The mad preacher clutched a satchel of stolen gold, his black coat flapping like raven wings. "You cannot stop God's work," Black screamed, firing wildly as he stumbled toward a hidden exit. "I am the instrument of divine justice." Jack's rifle spoke with cold authority, the bullet spinning Black around. The pastor tumbled toward the underground river, gold coins spilling like cursed tears. "Your God wouldn't claim you," Jack said grimly, watching the current carry away both man and treasure into the mountain's dark heart. Sheriff Mackenzie arrived with his posse as the last echoes of gunfire faded across Dead Valley. Chief Black Hawk's warriors emerged from the ridges, their weapons lowered in respect for the fallen. The conspiracy was broken, its leaders dead or fled. In the mine's entrance, Jack cradled Rose's still form, her emerald eyes peaceful at last. "She saved us all," he whispered to the gathering crowd. Gray Arrow limped out supported by Elizabeth, their love stronger for having survived the crucible of violence. The young Cheyenne warrior looked at the federal agent with new understanding. Some battles are worth the cost, he said quietly. Some loves are worth dying for. The hillside overlooking Redwood Springs was painted gold by the setting sun as Jack Thornton placed wildflowers on Rose's grave. The simple wooden cross bore her name and the words, "She chose justice over safety." Elizabeth knelt beside Gray Arrow as he recovered from his injuries, her gentle hands changing his bandages with loving care. "She spoke of you often in those final days," Elizabeth said softly to Jack. "She said you were the only man who ever saw her true heart." Jack's weathered face showed the weight of loss. "Some folks are too good for this hard world," he replied quietly, "but they make it better for having been in it." In the Cheyenne camp, Chief Black Hawk prepared sacred herbs for a healing ceremony. The old ways mixed with new understanding as White and Cheyenne medicine worked together to heal Gray Arrow's wounds. "The spirits speak of change coming," the chief told Jack as they shared the peace pipe. "My son's love for the Harrison girl shows a path forward." Jack nodded thoughtfully. "Hatred's an easier trail to follow, but it never leads anywhere worth going." The chief smiled, deep lines crinkling around his dark eyes. "You speak wisdom, Jack Thornton. Perhaps some white men can learn to see with different eyes." Sheriff Mackenzie stood in his office, writing his official report by lamplight. The weight of his mistakes pressed heavy on his shoulders as he documented the truth about the attacks. "I let prejudice cloud my judgment," he admitted to Deputy Collins. "That young Cheyenne saved lives while I was ready to hang him." He set down his pen and looked out at the quiet street. "Gray Arrow showed more honor in chains than I did with a badge." Outside, the town was learning to see past old fears. The conspiracy's exposure had shattered long-held assumptions about friend and foe. Jack packed his few belongings in the hotel room that had become home. His federal assignment was complete, but leaving felt like tearing away part of his soul. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Elizabeth entered, her arm supporting Gray Arrow as he limped slowly. "We wanted to thank you," she said, tears glistening. "You gave us a chance at happiness." Gray Arrow extended his hand in friendship. "You fought for justice when others chose hatred. That makes you brother to the Cheyenne." Jack clasped the young warrior's hand firmly. "And you showed me that love can heal wounds that bullets only make worse." 1 year later, Redwood Springs bloomed with unprecedented celebration. The church bells rang across the valley as Elizabeth Harrison, radiant in her grandmother's ivory dress, walked down the aisle toward Gray Arrow. The young Cheyenne warrior stood proud in traditional ceremonial dress mixed with frontier formal wear, a symbol of two worlds joining in harmony. Chief Black Hawk sat beside Sheriff Mackenzie in the front pew, their friendship a testament to healing old wounds. The entire town had gathered, White and Cheyenne together, to witness this historic union. Pastor Williams smiled warmly as he began the ceremony that would bind two hearts and two peoples. Jack Thornton stood at the back of the church, his federal badge replaced by a simple business suit. He had returned for this moment, drawn by bonds forged in fire and blood. As the couple exchanged vows, promising to love across all differences, he felt Rose's presence like a gentle whisper in his heart. After the ceremony, Gray Arrow approached him with Elizabeth at his side. "Will you stand as witness to our treaty?" the young warrior asked, producing a document. Jack read the marriage certificate, the first official union between a white woman and Cheyenne man in Colorado Territory. "It would be my honor," he replied, signing his name with a steady hand. The Silver Dollar Saloon had been transformed under Jack's ownership. Gone were the rough gambling tables and smoke-stained walls. In their place stood polished wood, clean linens, and a welcoming hearth. "The Rose O'Connor Hotel," read the elegant sign above the door. Jack stood behind the registration desk, greeting travelers with the same calm authority he'd once used as a federal agent. "Welcome to Redwood Springs," he told a dusty prospector. "We've got clean rooms, honest dealing, and the best coffee this side of Denver." The transformation reflected the town itself. Rougher edges smoothed by understanding and cooperation. In the new schoolhouse built where the old church storage had been, Elizabeth taught reading to a mixed class of White and Cheyenne children. Gray Arrow instructed them in tracking and wilderness survival, his gentle patience bridging two ways of knowing the world. Words on paper and signs in nature both tell stories, he explained to young faces bright with curiosity. Chief Black Hawk and Sheriff Mackenzie had signed a formal peace treaty, creating a model for other territories. As sunset painted the mountains gold, Jack walked the peaceful streets of Redwood Springs, knowing that some endings were really beginnings, and some strangers were meant to find home.